The Strange Library by Haruki Murakami, or rather Murakami, is a 1983. I was surprised about that, or maybe not so much because um, it had kind of emblem. It had some kind of interesting kind of threads to like early Murakami, with like strange kind of auteur things happening in a interesting kind of chronology of seemingly unrelated events kind of combining into some kind of nexus point where there's like some kind of meaning to be tied, like in the Wild Sheep Chase, or on which actually shows up kind of a motif of that kind of a thread of like kind of a progenitor to what could have been, I think, the Wild Sheep Chase. But yeah, it is about a boy. It's a quick, pretty quick read. It took about an hour. And it's one of his lesser known works. And I liked it. It's about this boy who visits his library to return a book, and then before you know it, he's kind of swept into this thing with like the old man at the is like very cranky and is like you must like um go to the basement and report there to like to be given further directions at this room, like room 107. And he's like, okay. And because he's just his mother's like very easily worried for him, and like is often kind of namely not helped by the fact that I think the young boy was also bitten by a dog as well. So that kind of worsens her, kind of makes her more kind of guarded about where he goes. So he's like right off the bat, it's like he's um, anyway. But yeah, there is a but basically this old man kind of conjures him and coerces him into kind of like signing this kind of deal of like so like he's like, but he's presenting himself as if he's helping. He's like, well, what are you interested in? And then the boy's just like, I don't know, I something to do with the Ottoman Empire. Like, I don't know, I want to be more educated on the tax collections in the Ottoman Empire. And then the man goes ahead and he gets like like a few large copy, um, and then hands it to him, and then ends up leading him down this kind of like very sketchy, kind of like labyrinthian, kind of subterranean, cavernous area where there is a very sparsely kind of decorated, very just kind of it made me think so much about Kafka, especially with cranky old men that are impatient. That was temperamental. That was my favorite. And then the whole thing where he's like the narrated from the point of view of the young boy, although I'm not sure how long ago he's recounting this, but he's also like mentioning how, like, why do I keep getting myself, like, why do I like do exactly what's asked of me? Like I've played along too far with your games, like people will like, like the old man asks like such like, you know, huge, like, existential things of him, and he's like, just follows along with it. Which is like a very Kafkaesque kind of feature to Murakami's writing, which makes it so, special, but also reminiscent of that. And it's like, that kind of the fear of rejection, or, the, fear of what might happen if you don't kind of go along with something. And it's like, it's not necessarily because the person's a bad person, but it's like more so because of like the kind of just, fear is a big driving motivator. So yeah, he goes down, and then he says that the requirements are that he reads the books in the allotted time in the jail cell that he gets him his jail cell, and it's like supplied with like kind of a like a rancid looking kind of a toothpaste kind of thing, and a little cup to brush his teeth and all that in a sink. And he's basically told that he has 1 month to completely memorize the whole volumes of the and then there's also a sheep guy. This is where it kind of reminds me of a Wild Sheep Chase. The sheep guy is like a very timid, kind of like, but jovial. Like he's like, hey, I'm just gonna tend to this thing, and he's like going around. He's like, oh, I'll light the matches for you. I'll make it cozy. I'll make you donuts, and like he's like, I'll make them from scratch, and like he ends up doing that actually, and he's like quite like an interesting character. Kind of, but he's also at the behest of whatever the old man, um, the kind of overseer of the library is like kind of like cajoling him, and not cajoling, but like submitting him, like blind, like completely, just like he like literally like whips him. Like he says that he like thrashes him against the face with like a kind of whip in order to submit, to make the sheep guy submit. So there's like a kind of weird, almost like, not to make it sound like more like it, but it's almost like a weirdly sexual imagery, I guess, of that, of just kind of a dominant type of guy that's like, oh, and I don't know if this is just this Haruki Murakami's Japanese kind of flavor of that, but it was like definitely like not obvious, but like the fact of like the why this guy is like hunched over and he's like, I'm just. There's a weird kind of sense of like almost like you would stumble on this in like a weird kind of like New World Order kind of not to kind of turn it to memify it, or to truncate the worth of it, but it kind of reminded me of like almost like a Bohemian Grove kind of thing with like all these elitist kind of people, and like the thing is, and kind of like a eyes wide shut too, like reminded me kind of that, definitely a Kubrickian kind of weird labyrinth of like people like meeting, and then which is weird because I guess this is 83, so um although I guess the original book, Arthur Schnitzler's dream story was actually in the 20s, I believe. But yeah, so basically the sheep man tells him that he um the old man plans to once he's done reading the books, to eat his brains out, because um once he kind of carves open his head, this is very kind of Kafkaesque again. Um, once he does that, once you read all those books, like your brain will be more mushy and like more kind of auspicious toward eating, I guess. So they'll be creamy with knowledge, I think he says. So basically, there's also a elusive girl's voice, a disembodied voice of a girl that comes through. She's that the narrator first describes as being like one of the most beautiful girls that he's ever seen, but it turns out he actually isn't seeing them, because then the sheep man says like, well, like I don't like I don't know who you're talking about. I've been the one serving you, but like it turns out like he's seeing this voiceless kind of disembodied thing that's I guess is like kind of it could just be an aspect of the boy's unconscious. And they basically he's trying to kind of gamble for his last chance at getting freeing himself out of the prison, and the old man and then this dog, kind of a rabid dog, kind of ends up kind of pursuing them, and then the boy and the sheep man end up escaping, and then go to a park, and basically the boy gets some rest and goes home, um, and then decides on never visiting the library again. And yeah, that's the Strange Library by Haruki Murakami. Um, yeah, this is quite an interesting read. It was told very plainly and like clinically, like the prose, unadorned, but was getting at something. Like there was like was simple enough that you might be able to recite it to somebody younger age, but I'm not sure if you would, due to some of the maybe intimations of like kind of the darkness of it. It's a very dark kind of humor, but it is funny. There are parts where I was almost laughing out loud. And yeah, but once he goes home and he has his mother makes him breakfast, like it's kind of like it's like not known. I know this is like the biggest trope in the history of tropes, especially in cinema, with like it was a dream all along, where like you wake up and it's a dream, or like, um, but I don't think it was kind of just that. I think it was like a. I don't think. I think it's left up to interpretation. It's equivocal whether or not he was dreaming or not. But I think with the boy, yeah, I definitely felt like there was a part that I related to, of like feeling like you're offending someone if you don't follow through. Especially if you're younger. If you're just naturally agreeable, and and prone to kind of not engage with conflict too, like in this kind of in this almost a Jungian thing of like the shadow too, of like the old man is like everything in a way that maybe the old boy doesn't want to be and runs from, and he has to kind of face it, and it's like a very Jungian kind of thing. um and the mysterious voiceless girl too, that was that he's like hallucinating, and as most beautiful girl, almost as like kind of the wisdom of Sophia, and like, or Adonis, or that maybe something not just like kind of the looks wise, but just the kind of like this soothing. You see that with Murakami a lot. There's always a kind of shy, but very. You see this in Koba Obis too, with like these women that are like very, very, very like demure, but like also affable, that they, and also like carrying out certain things that like kind of maybe the more mundane, unglamorous tasks that are kind of required of them. And you find this with like Murakami kind of sees, like he's been criticized a little bit for maybe portraying them too graphically, and I've had a bit of an issue with that, just reading Kafka on the Shore. That was my first Murakami, like 4 or 5 years back, I think. So yeah, that was I've definitely, he's like now one of my favorite, obviously, but with Kafka on the Shore, I loved parts of it. There was parts of it I was just coming, like appealing out, like almost like on the edge of my seat, in anticipation, just reading it, like what the next chapter, and then there'd be parts would be like so just starkly just like sexual, just very no undertones, just complete like sexual, and like just like an explicit, which I understand, but at the same time it's just a little bit jarring for a first read. But it's like especially with the whole Oedipus kind of thing with Kafka, Tamari, Kafka Tamari. Yeah, his living out this kind of destiny of like. But anyway, yeah, I'd like to do that next. But I just have to. It's been a while, like I said. Anyway, so I think that's all I have for the Strange Library by Haruki Murakami. Thanks for watching.